It is time for Political Breakfast. We've been coming to you live on Morning Edition due to the very fluid presidential race that just absorbs Georgia, a battleground state. Here this morning is Saba Long, who's in for Theron Johnson. Saba is the executive director of the Atlanta Civic Circle, and Republican strategist Brian Robinson is here as well. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Happy Thursday.
Yeah, happy Thursday. As you know, Saba and Brian, it has been a week of stumping for Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. We last spoke Tuesday, so let's talk about some of the things that have transpired since then. We have Donald Trump announcing a campaign stop here in Georgia on Saturday. We'll talk about that in a moment. But yesterday, still making news, he found himself in hot water with black journalists in Chicago at the National Association of Black Journalists Convention. He was there to answer questions, but used it as an opportunity to question Harris's race and said that she was a horrible VP. So, Brian, I'm going to begin with you. Where is this kinder and gentler Trump that some said would emerge after the assassination attempt?
Well, we heard former President Trump just the other day on the stump saying, I thought I was going to be nice. I'm not going to be nice. I'm not going to be nice. So I think he is going to be on the attack from here through the end. And attack mode is what he does best. It's where he is most comfortable. And quite often there's a bit of humor that's wrapped into it that his supporters see. They see some of this stuff as a bit, and others see it as offensive. And I think yesterday was one of those examples when he was speaking to the black journalists in Chicago. I do think that it's best to avoid anything about her race as far as discussing campaign issues. I don't like this stuff about calling her a DEI hire because I don't think it's, for one thing, it's a distraction, but two, it's not good politics. I don't think it moves the needle. Right now, when it comes to the issues that Americans care the most about, the economy, inflation, the crisis at the border, these are issues where Donald Trump has a strong polling advantage amongst the American electorate. We need to be focusing on those issues and keep it issue centered.
Yeah, I was going to say, Saba, Georgia voters, the undecideds here in Georgia are watching all of this unfold and watching this very closely. How damaging was that attack yesterday on Harris for Trump? Or will we see Saturday when he comes to Atlanta that it added even more fuel to his campaign?
Well, I think it's pretty bad when Tennessee Senator Tommy Tuberville or Alabama Senator Tommy Tuberville says, I'm not touching that, when he was asked to respond about what Trump said. Trump did not do himself any favors. I think if this is the type of campaign he's going to run over the next 90 or so days, Republicans will lose because they will turn off independents, they will turn off undecideds, they will turn off minority voters who may have considered giving them a chance. And this is often the thing that trips up Republican candidates is you have minority voters who are willing to vote Republican, but they're not willing to vote for someone who they think is a racist.
Brian, Harris responded, pretty quickly. And, she said that he's being divisive and disrespectful. Did his assertion add fuel to her campaign in any way?
Well, she's not saying a lot of nice things about Donald Trump either. She calls him weird, talks about him being a criminal, those type things. So look, there's going to be some give and take here in the campaign. With Donald Trump, I think it's good that he is showing up at events like yesterday. Just being in the room is progress over what we have seen in the past. Now, if the message isn't right, you're not moving the ball down the field. The message has got to be right. But I'm glad to see Republicans showing up at events like this where in the past they haven't gone or not been invited. And I think you're going to see some real visual outreach to black voters in Georgia at the rally on Saturday. I don't know yet how that's going to manifest, but keep an eye out for that. That shows they're not taking their eye off the ball as far as making sure that they shave off a certain number of black male voters, because that's a huge part of the winning coalition here in Georgia for Republicans today.
Yeah, Saba, you indicated, the racism that was brought to light yesterday. And Georgia voters are growing tired of that and want to hear more about the issues, et cetera. How does this factor into, what's going on here in Georgia and just how it's ever changing, with what bloc and what sanction of voters are important to this particular race?
Yeah, again, if Trump makes the campaign about Kamala Harris's race, he loses. If he makes the campaign about being an economic populist, there's a very good chance that he wins. If I were advising Trump, I would tell him to talk about the cost of living. That's something we hear a lot about in our reporting. I would go after companies who are inflating their margins, right? We talk about how much goods have increased. Some of that's inflation, but really inflation has gone down. And you could look to say, is this companies who were just being greedy? You could go after landlords who were taking advantage of tenants. That's the type of message that I would send. I would be calling out companies who I feel are un-American, who are taking advantage of Americans, who are trying to work hard and make a living and put food on the table and take care of their families.
Brian, Donald Trump's running mate, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, will campaign in Atlanta with him this Saturday. It will be his first campaign event in Georgia since becoming the vice president, presidential nominee. Messaging is oh so important, and you know this all too well. What do you think we will hear from them? What do you think we should hear from them?
I think Saba did a pretty good job of summarizing it. While I wouldn't agree with Saba on what those specifics should be, I do think the overall topic should be cost of living and immigration. And they need to hit those really hard. And one, paint the Biden-Harris administration's acts on those issues as failures, and then provide a vision for the future on how they're going to change it. I know that the Democrat populists want to make this about landlords and big business. The truth is we have an inflation problem because the federal government spent way too much money during COVID. That's what happened. And we need some fiscal conservatism and balance moving forward to get it back in line. And it's going to take some painful decisions. Now, that said, I wouldn't talk about painful decisions during the campaign. That's for later. Mm-hmm. But there's no easy way out of bad inflation other than doing things like high interest rates and cutting spending. So blame Biden-Harris. That's really all you got to do. It's their fault, and we're going to make it better. When we were in control, your life was better. You could get a loan. You could expand your business. It didn't break the bank to go to the grocery store. That's the message, and they need to focus on those two things to the exclusion of much else.
Yeah, Saba, Kamala Harris was here Tuesday, as you know, and now heads back to Georgia next week with her running mate, she says. If her campaign is, in fact, trying to zero in on the undecided, the independents here in Georgia, who might be the best person to share the ticket with her at this point?
I would say Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear, but I think all signs so far are pointing to Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro edging him out and becoming the VP. We'll see what ends up happening. I think there's some concern around Governor Shapiro with respect to his stance on Israel. But broadly, Andy Beshear and Shapiro both really present a message of to what we've just been talking about, Democrats caring about your income and your finances and wanting to make sure that there are policies in place that help the everyday Georgian, the everyday resident in the state.
What about you, Brian? You got a quick pick there?
I agree with that. I tell you that Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, has piqued my interest. I think he's a good performer. He's good on the stage. He's funny and relatable. I do think it's going to be Shapiro there, though. And I want to end with this. Kamala Harris was rocking the house on Tuesday night at Georgia State. It was a great visual. The crowd was really electrified. Just tons of energy. Republicans have got to match that. They got to pack the rafters out in that place. They can't have a visual with empty seats. They can't have a visual with people leaving midway through the programming. The Democrats put on a good show. The Republicans have to match it.
All right. We will wait and see and then, of course, talk about it next week. Brian and Saba, thank you so much for joining us and giving us your thoughts today.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you.
Amplifying Atlanta, this is listener-funded WABE.